Well, first of all, I want to mention Hiram Leffingwell, who really was one of the driving forces in the development of St. Louis. He was the man who had the idea to build Grand Boulevard, which is on a natural ridge that really surrounds the city on three sides. And he wanted a boulevard in the Paris style that would have been over 120 feet wide. But the county court thought that 80 feet was plenty. So it's not as great as it might have been, but that became an attraction which encouraged people to move west. And of course, it remained and really, in some ways, supplanted the downtown in the 1920s and 30s as an entertainment center. And then in the 1870s, after, in the meantime, founding the town of Kirkwood, Hiram Leffingwell was the driving force behind the creation of Forest Park, which many people thought was way too far west. Nobody would use it. It was completely out of the way. And he succeeded in doing that in 1876. And so that became the second major focus, I think, for people to want to live near. And of course, the West End is right in between. And unfortunately, Hiram Leffingwell then moved to Florida near Bradenton, and he eventually died there in 1897. So we don't have a monument to him in St. Louis, but he was an important figure. And another important figure, of course, is Peter Lindell, who bought up a lot of land in what were old French farms in this area, and he gets a lot of credit for things that he didn't actually do because he died in 1861. But his trustees then subdivided his property, and the area west of St. Louis University was platted in 1865 as Lindell's second edition, and that created the spine along Lindell Boulevard and the streets to the south of that, and a few of the streets to the north also. But they sat there vacant for the most part until the 1880s. One of the reasons was that they were too far out. People were building houses east of Grand in what was then called Stoddard's Addition, popularly known as Piety Hill. And it wasn't until the 80s, when that was already built up, that people turned this far west. Also, it was slowed up, I think, because of the National Depression that was started in 1873. So Vandeventer Place, for example, because of that depression, only had 3 houses on it for the first 10 years of its existence. But so that created a network of streets that people could move into when they finally had the money to do that in the 1880s. So another question is, why would this area be so much more fashionable than areas of the city to the north and south? And one of the reasons is just directional. The most fashionable part in the old city of St. Louis was Lucas Place, which was the present Locust Street, running west from the present Central Library for several blocks. And starting in 1851, that became the most fashionable place to live.